It was supposed to be the perfect weekend getaway. A chance to escape the hustle and bustle of city life, to relax and reconnect with nature. Sarah, Emily, Jason, and Mark had planned the trip for weeks, eagerly looking forward to their stay at a remote cabin by Fear Lake. The name should have been a warning, but they dismissed it as a local legend meant to deter tourists. The group arrived at the cabin just as the sun was setting, casting a golden glow over the tranquil lake. The cabin was rustic yet charming, with a cozy fireplace and a stunning view of the water. They unpacked their bags, eager to start their weekend adventure. As night fell, they gathered around the fire pit outside, roasting marshmallows and sharing stories. The mood was light and carefree until Jason brought up the legend of Fear Lake. He had read about it online and couldn't resist sharing the eerie tale. Legend has it that Fear Lake is cursed, Jason began, his voice low and dramatic. Years ago, a group of settlers vanished without a trace. Some say their spirits still haunt the lake, seeking revenge on anyone who dares to disturb their rest. Emily rolled her eyes. "Oh, come on, Jason. You don't really believe that, do you?" Jason shrugged. "I'm just saying. It's a creepy story. Makes you think twice about taking a midnight swim, huh?" Mark laughed, trying to lighten the mood. "Well, I'm not afraid of any ghosts. Who's up for a night hike?" Despite their initial reluctance, the group agreed to a short hike around the lake. The air was crisp, and the moonlight cast long shadows on the forest floor. As they walked, the sense of unease grew stronger. The forest seemed to close in around them, the branches whispering secrets they couldn't quite hear. Suddenly, Sarah stopped, her flashlight illuminating a strange symbol carved into a tree. "Guys, look at this. What do you think it means?" Jason examined the symbol, his brow furrowed. "It looks like some kind of warning. Maybe we should head back." But Mark was determined to prove his bravery. "Come on, it's just a creepy old tree. Let's keep going." Reluctantly, the group continued their hike, their nerves on edge. They reached a clearing where the moonlight reflected off the still waters of the lake. It was eerily beautiful, but the sense of foreboding was stronger than ever. As they stood by the water's edge, a low, mournful wail echoed across the lake. The sound sent chills down their spines, and they instinctively huddled closer together. "Did you guys hear that?" Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Jason nodded, his eyes wide with fear. "We need to get back to the cabin, now." They turned to leave, but the forest seemed to shift and change around them. The path they had taken was no longer visible, replaced by an impenetrable wall of trees. Panic set in as they realized they were lost. Mark tried to stay calm. "Okay, everyone just stay together. We'll find our way back." But the forest had other plans. As they stumbled through the underbrush, they heard the whispers grow louder, the wail more persistent. It was as if the spirits were leading them deeper into the woods, further from safety. Sarah tripped over a root, her flashlight slipping from her grasp. She scrambled to pick it up, but the light revealed something far more sinister: an old, weathered gravestone partially covered by moss. "Oh my God," Sarah gasped. "What is this place?" Jason examined the gravestone, his face pale. "I think we found the settlers' graves. We need to get out of here, now." They pressed on, desperation fueling their every step. The whispers seemed to mock them, growing louder and more insistent. The forest was a labyrinth, and they were its unwilling prisoners. Finally, after what felt like hours, they stumbled upon a narrow path that led them back to the cabin. Exhausted and terrified, they barricaded themselves inside, the fire crackling in the hearth the only source of comfort. But their ordeal was far from over. The whispers had followed them, echoing through the walls of the cabin. The wail grew louder, more anguished, as if the spirits were furious at being disturbed. Sarah sat by the window, her eyes wide with fear. "Do you think they'll leave us alone?" Emily shook her head. "I don't know, but we need to find a way to appease them, or we'll never make it out of here." Jason's eyes widened as he remembered something from the legend. The settlers vanished because they were trying to take something from the lake. Maybe we need to return whatever they were after. Mark frowned. "But we didn't take anything." Jason nodded. "I know, but maybe if we offer something back, it'll be enough to appease them." They gathered their belongings, searching for anything of value they could leave as an offering. Emily found an old locket she had brought with her, a family heirloom she had worn for luck. She hesitated, but knew it was their best chance of survival. They ventured back to the lake, the whispers growing louder with each step. The wail echoed across the water, a mournful cry that chilled them to the bone. They placed the locket on a rock by the water's edge, hoping it would be enough. As they retreated, the whispers seemed to fade, the wail growing softer. It was as if the spirits were appeased, at least for now. They returned to the cabin, their hearts pounding with fear and relief. The night passed slowly, every creak and groan of the cabin sending shivers down their spines. But as the first light of dawn broke through the trees, they felt a sense of hope. They had survived the night, and the spirits seemed to have retreated. Exhausted but grateful, they packed their bags and prepared to leave Fear Lake behind. As they drove away, they couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched, but the spirits were still there, lurking in the shadows. Years later, the memory of that fateful weekend still haunted them. They never spoke of it, each too afraid to relive the terror they had experienced. But one thing was certain: they would never forget the whispers in the dead of night and the eerie beauty of Fear Lake. It was a cold and foggy Friday evening when four friends, Jack, Emily, Mike, and Sarah, decided to escape the hustle and bustle of city life for a weekend getaway. They stumbled upon an old, isolated cabin deep in the heart of the woods, miles away from civilization. The locals whispered eerie legends about this place, tales of unspeakable horror, but the friends laughed it off, eager for an adventure. As they approached the cabin, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows that seemed to dance and writhe in the encroaching darkness. The cabin stood silently, an eerie silhouette against the darkening sky. It was ancient and decrepit, with gnarled wooden beams and broken windows that appeared to watch them with unseen eyes. "Well, it certainly has character," Jack quipped, trying to lighten the mood. "Yeah, it looks like it could use a little TLC," Emily added with a nervous chuckle. They unloaded their bags and stepped inside. The air inside the cabin was stale and heavy, filled with the scent of damp wood and decaying leaves. The floorboards creaked under their weight, and the dim light from their flashlights revealed cobwebs hanging from the ceiling like ghostly veils. "This place gives me the creeps," Sarah whispered, shivering. "Come on, it's just an old cabin. There's nothing to be afraid of," Mike reassured her, though he couldn't shake the feeling of unease creeping up his spine. They settled in, lighting a fire in the ancient stone fireplace to chase away the chill. The flames cast flickering shadows on the walls, and the friends gathered around, trying to banish the eerie atmosphere with laughter and conversation. As the night wore on, the wind outside began to howl, and the temperature dropped even further. Emily, ever the curious one, suggested they explore the cabin a bit more. They split up, flashlights in hand, and began to investigate. Jack and Emily found an old, dust-covered bookshelf in one corner of the living room. They pulled out a few ancient tomes, their covers faded and brittle with age. One book in particular caught Emily's eye. It was bound in cracked black leather and had a strange, pulsating energy to it. "What's this?" Emily asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know, but it looks weird," Jack replied, his curiosity piqued. They opened the book, and as they did, a cold draft seemed to sweep through the room. The pages were filled with strange symbols and cryptic text that neither of them could decipher. Emily felt a chill run down her spine, and she quickly shut the book. Meanwhile, Mike and Sarah had ventured upstairs, their footsteps echoing through the silent cabin. They found a small bedroom, its walls adorned with old, faded photographs of a family long gone. The bed was covered in a thick layer of dust, and the air was heavy with a sense of abandonment. "Do you think anyone has lived here in the past 100 years?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. "Doesn't look like it," Mike replied, his eyes scanning the room. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from downstairs, followed by Jack's panicked voice. "Guys, get down here now!" Mike and Sarah rushed back to the living room, where they found Jack and Emily standing over a shattered mirror. The room felt colder, the fire in the fireplace flickering weakly. "What happened?" Mike demanded. "We were looking through this old book, and then this," Emily explained, holding up the black leather tome. Sarah's eyes widened in fear. "Maybe we should leave. This place gives me the creeps." Before they could decide what to do, the cabin was plunged into darkness as the fire in the fireplace went out, leaving them in pitch blackness. A deep, guttural voice filled the room, speaking in a language none of them understood. The friends huddled together, their flashlights flickering as if fighting against an unseen force. The air grew colder, and they could feel a palpable sense of malevolence closing in around them. "We need to get out of here, now," Jack shouted, his voice trembling with fear. They made a frantic dash for the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if the cabin itself had come alive, trapping them within its haunted walls. The guttural voice grew louder, and shadows seemed to move and twist in the darkness. Desperate and terrified, they tried the windows, but they too were unyielding. The friends were trapped, their flashlights flickering and casting eerie, dancing shadows. "There's got to be a way out," Emily said, her voice shaking. "Maybe there's a back door," Mike suggested. They moved through the cabin, their movements hurried and frantic. The darkness seemed to close in around them, the temperature dropping to an unbearable chill. The guttural voice continued to echo through the cabin, growing louder and more menacing with each passing moment. Finally, they reached the back of the cabin, where they found a door that seemed to be their last hope. With trembling hands, Jack turned the knob, and to their immense relief, it swung open. They stumbled outside, gasping for breath as the cold night air hit their faces. The cabin loomed behind them, its dark silhouette seeming to watch them with malevolent eyes. The guttural voice still echoed faintly, but it was losing its grip on them. "We need to get out of these woods," Sarah said, her voice trembling. The friends took off, running through the dense forest, their flashlights barely illuminating the path ahead. The ground was uneven, and they tripped and stumbled, but they didn't dare stop. The sense of malevolence from the cabin seemed to follow them, an unseen force urging them to keep moving. As they ran, they heard strange whispers and rustling sounds in the darkness, as if unseen eyes were watching their every move. The cold air bit at their skin, and the trees seemed to close in around them, creating a nightmarish labyrinth. Hours later, just as dawn began to break, they finally emerged from the forest, exhausted and disheveled. The sight of their parked car was a welcome relief, and they collapsed inside, their hearts pounding with fear and adrenaline. They drove away as fast as they could, not daring to look back. The cabin of nightmares receded into the distance, a dark shadow in their memories. As they sped down the winding road, the friends vowed never to speak of the cabin again. But the haunting experience would forever linger in their minds, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurks in the most unexpected places. The weekend was supposed to be an escape, retreat into the mountains, far away from the stress of city life. 5 friends, all exhausted from their grueling jobs, had planned a 2-day stay at an isolated cabin deep within the woods of Black Hollow. It was a place without cell service, without distractions, just nature and the company of old friends. The group Mark, Emily, Jason, Olivia, and Ben arrived late in the afternoon. The sun dipped behind the trees, casting elongated shadows over the gravel path that led to the cabin. The place was picturesque, yet there was an eerie stillness in the air. As they stepped inside, dust swirled in the dim light, and a draft whispered through the wooden beams, making the walls creak. "This is perfect," Olivia said, setting down her bag. No emails, no deadlines, just us and the great outdoors. Mark chuckled. And horror stories by the fire, obviously. Ben smirked. I mean, the place does have the perfect setting for it. Middle of nowhere, old wooden cabin, and a dark history. Jason rolled his eyes. Of course it has a dark history. What, did someone go missing here? Ben hesitated before answering. Actually, yeah. There are rumors about this place. People who come here don't always leave. Emily laughed, though it was nervous. Oh, come on. That's just some old campfire tale. But as the night unfolded, the eerie nature of the retreat became undeniable. That evening, they built a fire outside, drinking and laughing under the starlit sky. The forest beyond the clearing was a vast, endless darkness, stretching in all directions. Occasionally, the wind rustled the trees, but there was something odd about the way the sounds carried. It felt as if something was listening. Did you guys hear that? Mark suddenly asked, sitting up. The group fell silent. In the distance, deep in the woods, a sound echoed off, faint, rhythmic tapping. It wasn't the rustling of leaves or the call of an animal. It was deliberate. Tap, 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 Jason scoffed. Probably just a branch knocking against a tree. No, it's moving, Olivia whispered. The tapping stopped. The air felt heavier. A cold breeze rolled through, snuffing out some of the fire. Jason threw another log onto it, but the momentary darkness made them all uneasy. All right, let's head in, Emily said, standing abruptly. It's getting cold. Reluctantly, they all followed, locking the cabin door behind them. The fire in the stone fireplace crackled, casting flickering shadows on the wooden walls. Olivia curled up with a blanket on the couch, while the others took their spots on makeshift bedding in the main room. But sleep did not come easy. Around 3 a.m., Emily woke with a start. The room was silent, except for the steady breathing of her friends. But something felt wrong. Her skin prickled. The air was thick, as if the atmosphere itself had shifted. Slowly, she turned her head toward the window. A figure stood outside. At first, she thought it was a trick of the firelight, but as her eyes adjusted, she saw it clearly. A tall, gaunt figure, its face obscured by darkness, standing perfectly still just beyond the glass. It didn't move, didn't breathe. It only watched. Her heart pounded. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing it to be a nightmare. But when she opened them again, the figure was closer. The window pane fogged slightly, as if something cold and unseen exhaled against it. A whisper curled into the room, low and guttural. "You shouldn't have come." Emily's scream woke the others. Jason bolted upright, grabbing a flashlight, but when he shone it at the window, nothing. The figure was gone. Morning arrived with little comfort. Emily was pale and shaken, convinced she had seen something. The others dismissed it as a bad dream, though unease lingered. Over breakfast, they noticed something disturbing. The forest outside seemed different. The trees were closer. "Is it just me, or does the tree line look wrong?" Olivia murmured. Jason frowned. "No, that's not possible. Trees don't move." But they had. The once spacious clearing was now suffocating, the branches clawing toward the cabin like grasping fingers. Then they saw the footprints, leading from the woods to the window where Emily had seen the figure. Barefoot. Deep imprints in the damp soil, but no tracks leading away. A chilling realization settled over them. Whoever or whatever had been watching them was still here. The day passed in uneasy silence. They avoided the woods, staying close to the cabin. But as night fell again, a terrible sound returned. Tap-a-tap-a-tap. This time, it came from inside the house. Mark's breath hitched. "It's in here." A whisper slithered through the air, an echo from the unseen. "Leave before the night takes you." Then the lights flickered. Panic erupted. Jason grabbed his keys. "Screw this. We're leaving now." They rushed to the door, but it wouldn't budge. No matter how hard Jason pulled, it was as if something held it shut from the outside. The windows, too, were locked in place. The cabin had become a prison. Ben turned, voice shaking. "We have to last until dawn." The whispers turned into wails. The fire in the hearth died, plunging them into suffocating darkness. Something moved within the shadows. Hands reached out from the walls, stretching, grasping. Emily screamed as unseen fingers brushed against her skin. Jason swung a chair, shattering a window. "Go!" One by one, they clambered through the broken glass, sprinting into the tangled woods. The whispers followed, whispering their names. The trees seemed to shift, forcing them deeper into the forest rather than out. Then in silence, one by one, the voices stopped. The darkness seemed endless. And then Jason realized something horrifying. He was alone. Days later, search parties found no trace of the group except Jason. He was discovered miles away, wandering along the highway, eyes hollow with terror. He could not explain what had happened, only muttering the same words over and over. "The forest, it moves. The cabin, it's alive. It won't let you leave." Black Hollow remains abandoned. The cabin still stands, waiting for the next visitors foolish enough to seek retreat within its walls, waiting to take them too.